Hey everyone, today I've got Shuali with me. He is a ball of passion for an alternative way of educating children. When we came onto our Zoom meeting, he was just straight into it. So he lives in Florida and he helps schools and parents all over the world with thinking about different ways of being with children. Thank you for joining me today. Pammy, she sent me some of your stuff and I've watched it and I think it's hilarious and I think it's a really powerful way to get through to parents and teachers in terms of the humor that you use.
My world is all about helping people understand how their minds work and introducing them to a ton of new things, but also doing it in a way where it's not oppositional, whereas a lot of people don't like to be told what to do. A lot of people don't like to learn new things because they're just like, I'm good. Like, I know everything, which is insane because we're constantly learning and we're educators ourselves. Like, how can we say we know everything when, these kids that have information coming from like wherever, they know the real stuff. And it's more of, it's kind of like there's a difference. Have you ever heard of somebody being called an educer or to educe from someone? EDUCE?
No.
So I consider myself an educer and an educator. So an educator is someone that gives information to a kid. And, I don't know how it is over there, but I mean, our American school system is just, that's my 15-pound attack dog. Our school system is all about just take tests and memorize information and take tests, and you're not going to need it, and do science and do math and like in reality. And I have a master's degree in education, and I was in talented and gifted classes, and I didn't find needs for physics and chemistry, blah, blah. If you want to specialize in it, I'm fine. If you like, why do we need history? Like, Google it. I mean, literally, it's like all this information now that's available. It was like school systems were based on memorization. Now you don't need to. You don't need a calculus. You don't need this. Everything's on your phone. So it's like literally the whole school system's obsolete. And it's designed for, in the American world here, to just keep people workers, going to college, getting to debt, workers, piece of paper guarantees you nothing, 4 years. So it's like, for me, my world is having people understand there's other things that people can do other than the regular system. I actually have a commitment to eliminate 11th and 12th grade unless someone wants to be there, and let kids go pursue their careers, not a job. Like, we're done with that whole job thing, but go pursue your career. The Seth Rogans, the Jim Carreys dropped out of 8th grade, 7th grade. People that, like, I show videos of this one kid called Arch Jr., DJ Fresh. He's a DJ. He won the youngest, the Got Talents, America's Got Talents, Britain's Got Talent. Okay, so he won the youngest Got Talent on the planet. At 3 years old, he won South Africa's Got Talent as a DJ. And this kid is doing, this board has so many different turntables and this and that, and he's doing everything, and the crowd's going crazy. And I'm like, why are you going to put that kid in school where he understands music and mathematics? Let him explore. And yeah, give him a tutor, English, the thing's basic. But, I show a video of another kid who has 1.5 million views, and this child is a blonde-haired boy that is a chef, and he's just baking a cake, but he's adorable. But 1.5 million views gets you X amount of dollars from YouTube, because that's the marketing of today. So my world is introducing people and breaking them out of their patterns, of, you got to do this, especially in early childhood. You got to do this. No, you just play. You play and you educate a little bit, wrapping around to that whole educator versus educer. You educate, you teach them stuff, but you educe. To educe is to draw from, to bring from within. So I'm asking kids questions. I do something when I taught my yogurati classes when I lived in New Jersey, and we had like 60 schools, and we were doing this all over the place. Basically, it was like I would have something called open mic. And I would have something called open mic where I let the kids just kind of talk and like, what do you want to say, and have things do. I mean, I'm learning about Reggio Emilio schools that are child led, and it's just amazing, that whole concept of letting these kids teach what they want to learn, and then you just be a source of information
Mm.
in addition to a source of knowledge, like a source of passion, a source of vision for these kids. So I get a little worked up when I talk about this.
I can see you're very passionate.
Yeah.
I'm also a very passionate advocate for child-led learning and for adults being guides rather than teachers or authority figures
Absolutely.
in a classroom. We're here to provide knowledge and guide them, but we're not here to tell them to sit down and cross their legs and cross their arms. And if you don't do that, you're going to go on the orange traffic light on the
Right, right. Or
wall. You know, um, yeah. I don't think that the education system today is set up for success in terms of holistic success, meaning emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being. There are some children that can't sit still. It's just not in their
right,
DNA. They cannot sit
yeah,
still, and
right.
neither the athletes and the doers, the engineers, who are outside constructing things. And to put them in a classroom and make them sit down and be punished if they can't sit down, that's disabling them. That's
Right.
allowing them that freedom to
It's
express their
from what,
talent.
thank you. Express your talent. From what I've seen, there's two types of humans. There's a 95% of humans that are the followers, and there's nothing wrong with it. We need followers, we need soldiers, we need builders. You tell them what to do, sit over there, wash your hands, stand up, sit up straight, do this test, whatever, it's fine. Same thing with adults too. Those adults are the adults that when you're driving and they see a sign that says your exit 2 miles or 5 kilometers down the road, those 95% of the people are the one that immediately pull into the right lane and sit in 2 miles of traffic. Okay. The 5%, the alphas, the brilliant boy that has the other kids get themselves in trouble while he runs everything like a puppeteer, the alpha girl, the one that says you're not invited to your own birthday party, and she runs the whole entire thing. These kids are not going to be sitting in a classroom. They're staring out the window. Me, I was asking, why do I need this? Why do I need that? My mother, my background's Israeli. It's just military. Just do this, learn, and you're going to be a manager of a business. I'm like, oh, that sounds horrible. But that also, it comes from parents that are programmed the same way. You need a job. Like my grandfather, when he was still alive, came from Israel, and he asked me, what do I do? And this is when I started my company. I'm like, well, I teach kids karate. I teach them life skills. I teach them soccer. I teach them yoga. He's like, well, where do you do it? It's like in a preschool. He's like, how much do you make? And I told him, well, the first school I ever really went into in charge, I had 30 kids sign up at $100 a pop. I made $3,000. He's like, oh, that's amazing. He's like, well, but still, I don't get it. What do you do for work? I'm like, no, that's it. That's what I live. He's like, I don't understand. I'm like, what don't you understand? He's like, well, you're having fun. I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, you're not supposed to have fun at work. You have fun after. And just, I looked at him and I'm like, wow, you are just a robot. And then I understood my parents, and I understood everybody's just do this, do that. And like you said, the kids that have high energy, I mean, I've learned in my travels, if you have a classroom of kids and one kid just happens to be rocking back and forth, one kid just happens to be doing this, one kid just happens to lay on his belly and put his hands like this because he can focus more. You ask yourself 3 questions. Question number 1 is, can I still teach? Like, you can still teach just because your mind is going, that child is not doing what my expectation of him is to be, even though my expectation is just in my mind as opposed to reality. And that's what we do. We human beings create expectations for other people, comma, never share the expectation with them, comma. When they don't fulfill the expectation that they know nothing about, we are automatically programmed to be upset at the other person, even though there's no common sense or no logic about it whatsoever. It's just part of our program. So when a teacher goes, I expect all the kids to be sitting crisscross applesauce on the rug. Okay, that's good. So if a child doesn't do it, you can either you can do win lose, which is what a lot of people do, where I'm righteous and I'm right and the child should be like that, and then the child feels diminished when you say sit up straight, blah blah blah. Or you can do win win, which a lot of people don't really even understand that concept, because humans are trained to be competitive and they're conditioned that way. And win-win could be like, okay, so take a breath. The child's doing whatever they're doing. They're lying on their belly, doing this and that. Can I still teach? Yes. Okay. Second question, can he still learn? Yes. Third question, can everybody else in the room still learn? Yes. Okay, great. And then you go, okay, and you keep on teaching, even though it doesn't look like the way your mind tells you, and it's win-win for everybody. Like in my behavior mastery system, it's 5 parts. Part 1 and 2 is for the 95% of the kids. It's pattern interrupts, roof, meow. Hello, everybody. Come on over here. Roof, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Whatever. Anything, just to get the kids to look at you for a second. Second one, pre-frame. Auditory visual cues. I like the way that you're sitting crisscross. I like the way, do I want you standing up or do I want you sitting crisscross? Applesauce. Auditory visual cues. 95% of the kids, I go like this. Meow, roof. They look at me. I like the way you're sitting crisscross. I like the way you're sitting crisscross. Do I want you standing or sitting crisscross? 95%, 96%, boom, they do it. Done. Followers. The alpha looks at you and goes, you want me to stand up, and they make that face, and then in their mind they go, now make the face that you make, because we're just actors to these kids. We're the comedians, you know. So what I do is I do something called unique positive reinforcers, which basically is, what's the passion of the kid? The teacher should know. This one kid talks about racing all the time. This one kid talks about airplanes. This one kid talks about blocks. This one kid talks about dinosaurs, whatever it is. Great. So now you give them a show, like show and tell, but it's only for the alphas. And then what you do is you let them explain about cars, about dress up, about themselves, about this. I don't care if they just love talking about themselves. They could be a pro wrestler. They could be the president of the United States. They can be a prime minister. If you love talking about yourself, that's politics. So they can do whatever. And then you give them a show and they love it and they do it in front of the kids, and then the other kids love it and everybody's happy and the child gets to express their vision for their selves, and then everybody gets a win-win. And the other thing too is then it's actually something you can take away from the child, because usually sometimes the alphas, doesn't matter what you try to take away from them, because that's like the win-lose type thing that we've been programmed. It really doesn't benefit. So it's like making a difference for them by actually caring about what they want to do, as opposed to just what's in the curriculum book.
It's interesting that you say that only 5% of children are like this.
I haven't actually done the statistical calculations across the whole entire planet yet. What I've seen is I've worked in preschool environments since 2006, and an average classroom to me was about 20 kids or so, 2 teachers, 20 kids, whatever the ratio was. And usually what I saw around then was maybe 1 female alpha and 1 male alpha. So I guess that would be the calculate, because that would be really out of 20 kids. If one of the kids is an alpha, that's like 5%. But it's like, it's interesting how male, and especially now because we're learning so much about gender fluidity, and we're learning so much about understanding and trying to explain to kids about their gender, that I'm curious moving forward, as kids become more understanding of that, if it's going to shift. But from what I've seen, like I said, I mean, I've worked in over, at least, I didn't work in a preschool like 40 hours a week. I would come in for an hour and a half. I'd do 3 classes. I would talk to the director. I would leave. There was a point where we were in like 60 schools with like 8 instructors all over New Jersey. Even I was actually teaching yoga karate, my yoga karate program, at the Bright Horizons preschool at the United Nations, which was awesome because I was learning about different countries. I'm like, your name is what? Olats? Where are you from? I didn't even know that country existed. So it was incredible. But that's what I usually saw. In a classroom of 10 kids, you would have about like one kid would be an alpha. Just one just happens to be in charge. So I look at it. See, my background came from being a martial artist first. And when I learned how to work with kids and teach them karate was because I was working at a karate studio. First, I was a student, and then I was working at a karate studio where the husband was an elementary school teacher and the wife was a preschool teacher. And she trained me in how to teach preschool kids for about a year and a half. Like, he told me, you're going to end up with a master's degree without the piece of paper. I'm like, that's fine. Piece of paper doesn't mean anything to me. And then I started doing that. and it was amazing working with the kids at that level. But the great part about it was in a karate studio, you have the sensei, the head instructor. You always then have senpais. So the head instructor was a sensei, I was a senpai, and then there was another person. And then when I was running my own classes with the preschool kids, there was something called the SWAT team, Super Winning Attitude Team. And there was usually it was two instructors. It just happened to be like this kid and that kid. They're maybe 11, 12, 13 years old, but they're helping me. So I grew into a world where there's always 3 or 4 teachers. So it works so much better, especially when I teach my yoga karate classes, my soccer classes. I would always find an alpha and be like, you go work with those kids, you go work, especially when I worked in Montessori schools, because when I had 5-year-olds and 2.5-year-olds in the same classroom, oh, it was so much easier. Here, go work with this guy. I had 2 little twins, a 2.5-year-old boy and a 2.5-year-old girl. They were standing there like this, and then the other kids were older. I'm like, go work with them in the corner, show them the stances, you go do this. It was so much easier because not every kid's at the same level. It's crazy that we still put kids into classroom environments based on a number, based on when they were born, as opposed to level. There's no other world in reality that does that. No
Yeah.
corporation, no school, no system, no college. You're not going to go to college and be like, well, all the 19-year-olds are here. It's insane, but it's such an industrialized, like Sir Ken Robinson had such an amazing video and his talk on changing education paradigms. When I watched it, absolutely blew my mind. I'm like, oh, that's why, because they want to just keep everything uniform. Here. I see other countries, they're doing beautiful things. I see in China, they have schools where they're 2 floors and they're open the size of a football field. And I see in Finland, they're doing stuff where the kids are outside in nature base. And then I look here and it's sit in your classroom like this and don't look at your partner because that's cheating. But in real life, there's no such thing as cheating. It's all collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt the same way for the UK. However, it is changing
Yes.
slowly.
Yes.
But they
Yeah.
are starting to pop up around America and around the UK. Yeah. And currently I'm in New Zealand, and the early childhood curriculum here is, in my opinion, one of the best because it's holistic. It is nurturing the whole child and following the child, and it's very much play based. And it's called Te Whariki, and it's used overseas as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. So if any parent that's watching this, I have started recording because what you were saying, you were on a roll, so I just press record and just let
I
you.
appreciate that's fine. That's fantastic. Share away with everybody. I love it.
If a parent has a child at home, or if a caregiver or if a nanny has a child at home and they aren't listening and they are all over the place, do you have any ideas for them if they're to get their children to start listening and to participate?
So I love what you just said, because the first thing is the change in the adult. They're always listening. They're just choosing to do whatever behaviors they want. But we have been programmed to say the word listening. So when we say to a 4-year-old, you're not listening to me, and that kid goes, I heard every word you just said. And then you're consistently, as an adult, browbeating that. You don't have your listening ears. Why aren't you listening to me? And it's so confusing. Instead of, can I find a way to help you understand my directions better? So first thing is just your kids are always listening, because if they're in the other room and you're whispering about them, they can hear you. So they're always listening. It's just figuring out a way how to get them to choose to change their behaviors. Because if I say right now, whoever's listening or watching this, from this point on, you're not allowed to raise your hands in the air because I said so. Exactly. And what is everybody else thinking, right? And then in my keynotes and workshops, I go, I'm going to do it even worse. I'm going to say words to you, which really is just sounds. I'm going to say words to you. You're going to hear the words, give them meaning, and then you're going to put your hands up in the air and give me all your power. And people are like, oh, we're not gonna. I'm like, I'm telling you exactly what you're gonna do, and you're not gonna have a choice because of your programming and because you're making my words mean something. They're just sounds. If I said it in a different language, you wouldn't respond. So then I have an audience of 1,000 ladies, usually for early childhood, or average that like 90%. And I go, you're not allowed to raise your hands in the air because I'm a man and I know what's best for you. And yeah, that feeling right there. And you feel the whole room, and they just they're shaking. They're like this, and they're like, oh, well, and some people are like, oh no, you're not gonna do that. And I'm sitting there and I bust out laughing. Other people, I'm like, do you get it? You literally handed me your power, and I just said sounds to you. So kids are always gonna say sounds. There's no such thing as a child pushing somebody's buttons. There's no such thing as a child being disrespectful if you're living in the world of reality. See, in reality, if a child's not looking at you, they're just not looking at you. In your mind, you make up the child's being what? What is an automatic go-to that an adult will make up if a child won't look at me in the eyes? They don't do it. The child's being what?
Probably naughty.
Okay, good. What else? The child's being what?
Disrespectful.
There you go. That's it. By the way, the child's not doing any of that. We're making that up in our heads and putting it on the child. By the way, when a child turns their head, isn't their ear closer to your mouth? Wouldn't it be better for a child to process if they actually turn their ear and actually listen to you? So my request of adults, of parents, of nannies, anybody, is to get, when you give a child an instruction or a command or what to do, 95% of them will do it. That's fine. If you have an alpha, getting them to change their behaviors is all based on them wanting to, not because I'm an adult and I want to keep them safe. I know what's best for them. I know this. They don't care. It doesn't matter. So figuring out a way how to get them to change their behaviors based on giving them what they want. And that's when that goes into that whole unique positive reinforcer. And they can always reach out to me because I have a webinar. It's a 1-hour webinar on my behavior mastery system that teaches. I mean, I pretty much went over everything. I went over the part 1's a pattern interrupt. The part 2 is the pre-frame. Part 3 is called the power look, but there's a secret how to do it. And some people just go, oh, I already do that. And you don't, because you don't know what it is. But if you want your story in your mind to have you believe it, that's fine. Part 4 is the unique positive reinforcer. And then part 5 is the magic. It's called fast forward testing. That's the moment where when you do it, you actually see the child process information, look at you, and powerfully say to you, I'm not doing that anymore. The behavior that you want them to stop. But it's a whole entire system that goes in. I like leaving like a cliffhanger.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that.
I'm talking. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I don't stop talking. I'm sorry. You're literally going to have to tell me to be quiet.
No, this is great. This is great. A perfect amount of time as well. Thank you so much for it's been amazing. You've answered all of the questions that I was going to ask in the first place anyway. Yeah, have fun.
There you go. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the noise. Hang on. One more time.
Nice. That's from my professional wrestling days. Nothing. I don't want to give that away. NXT. Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, my website is super simple, ronspeak.com, RONSPEAK.com. Reach out, shoot me an email if you have questions about anything. I love to chat and help people, especially all over the world. The farther I can reach until we get to another planet, the better everything's going to be, because I love working with people who, if they see the brilliance in their child and they're able to break out of their own automatic programming, they're going to help future Elon Musks. They're going to help future, the kid that is talking about this and that. In 20 years from now, that kid's going to come up with something that's going to save the planet. So it's like seeing the visionary kids that we work with, and oh, can you imagine?